Welcome back, everybody. It is your week 8
Yep.
episode of Aaron and Ben picks. A lot to get to, but number one, Ben, I'm just going to take the floor. Um, a man is nothing without his word, and I want to apologize to Ben, to Corey, to all the listeners who, for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, honestly, when we introduced the lock segment, who have taken mine. I am 0-7, and I want to apologize. It's not something obviously that you want to be, but I will say, and this is, knocking on wood, you can't go anywhere but up from here. So we're trying to be 2-0 every week. Honestly, at this point, I'll take a 1-1 just to get the zero out of the, just to change that zero column. But we want 2-0, obviously, because if I go 2-0, Ben and Corey are probably going to go 2-0, and we'll hit some big money hits. And that's what we want. That's what everybody wants. So I did want to take some time before we jumped into the episode to
I'm
say
sure that all of the listeners will appreciate that, and me and Corey definitely appreciate it as well.
yes. It's been tough. It's been. Everything's been wrong, and it's just not wrong. It's terrible. Like it's not even. Oklahoma got blown out. Uh, I think I had the Ole Miss team over last week, and they didn't score 30, and it was at 44.5. So honestly, maybe I'm in bad omen. Maybe that's what it was. So maybe I should. You know what? No, but I want to win it, so I'm not going to take things that I want to have happen or want to have happen and take the opposite of. But a lot to jump into, so let's get to crack-a-lackin'. So 18 days ago, I think that's the math.
18?
Penn State had Oregon.
Okay.
I think that is. Penn State had Oregon at 4th and 1 in the first overtime, leading 24-17. A stop there. They win the big game that they haven't won in the last decade. They beat, they had beat Ohio State since 2016, had beat Michigan when they mattered, then beat Oregon last year. 18 days later, or actually 15 at the time of the firing, James Franklin is out of a job, has been paid between roughly $45, $49 million to no longer be the head coach at Penn State. He's gone. I couldn't even tell you who their interim head coach is, but it has turned that fast. Drew Aller is also out for the season now. Ben, I guess what is your thoughts on the firing? Obviously, we both think it's something that had to be done. Are you, I guess, surprised that they did it with the season still going because he had been there for so long? And I guess also will that lead into our next discussion with this? Who do you think they can get that can return them to the prominence that they believe, the fans believe at least, that they should be at?
I mean, number one, he did a great job at Penn State. You have to acknowledge that. I mean, he built the program to what it is, really, from the Paterno sanctions and everything that went on with that. Like he really did a great job after building Vanderbilt. Basically, built Vanderbilt up, left them, built Penn State right back up as well. So he's a great coach. He's gonna probably succeed wherever he ends up going. But to your point, he lost the big game, and that's like the one thing that Penn State can complain about. Like their fans have had it really great, and I mean with the 12-team playoff, like they were set to go 10-2 every year, except the Big Ten got rid of divisions. But realistically, they were going to go 10-2 every year. They were going to make the playoffs, and then roll the dice. Who knows what can happen? You can get a lucky draw like they did last year, and you could not throw an interception on the last drive, and you could potentially get in the national championship game, and then who knows what happens, right? So, I mean, once you get in the playoffs, you roll the dice. You never know what the matchups will lead to. So I think there was that, but at the same time, the Penn State fans wanted to at least have the chance of thinking, oh, we can be the number 1 overall seed. Oh, we can be the number 4 overall seed. Like we can compete to win our conference. We won't have 2 conference losses every year. They weren't getting that, and so I think it makes sense for the frustration to have built like year over year having the same results. So I think that was a huge issue. So they lost to Oregon. Me and obviously the whole country was just surprised that they lost to UCLA and then Northwestern. Like, yeah, you lose the big games, but the most shocking thing, not even that he got fired, is that they lost those two games. Those two teams in the Big Ten are
Right.
not like, well, UCLA went and won the next week too, like this past week too, but like
Right.
those two teams were not good, are not good.
No, and I think that's what finally did it in for him was I think Penn State they want to be okay with continue like if it continued for another 3-4 years, maybe maybe they
Yeah.
fire him if he had continued on the 10-2 but make the playoff every year trajectory because you see it all the time. Excuse me, in the NFL where you know coaches get fired because they can't win the big playoff game and stuff like that. Like there's just a stalemate of you make it to the AFC or they make it to the conference championship game,
Yeah.
whatever. The thing that did him in was, and it makes me wonder about Dabo's future. Though Dabo does have the 2 national titles that he can hold on to, but this was the team that was supposed to do it, and not only did they not win the big game against Oregon, they followed that up and lost, like you said, at UCLA, Northwestern at home, and it's like you're not only are you not winning the games you're not supposed to now, or you're not only not winning those toss-up games, you're losing games that you're 20-point favorites, and they were 20-point favorites each of the last 2
Yep.
weeks, and not only did they not cover, they did not win.
Yep.
And that is, I think, what ended up being his eventual downfall was they were okay with not winning the big game, not winning those 2 games every year, whichever they would two, whether it was Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, combination of those 3 teams twice, whatever it was. They weren't winning the games that they were this year at least. They weren't winning the games they were supposed to. And when you had all this preseason hype of an expectation, and then that happens, that's how. I mean, you've seen it happen with like Lane Kiffin when he was at USC. Same kind of situation where they were preseason number 1 and they went 7-6. The next season started out rough, and then boom, he got fired on the tarmac or in the tarmac office, whatever it was. And so that I think is what ended up being his downfall. But yeah. So who do you think can replace him? And is there a coach out there? Because you actually posed this question a few weeks ago after the Oregon game of, is there a coach out there for Penn State that's a Kirby Smart-esque, where he can take a coach that can take the team from where they're at, which is not at the top, but like near the top, and then take them over the hump.
I think I
just don't know if there's a coach out there necessarily that, unless it's a sitting head coach at a big school, and when I say big, I'm talking like your Georgias, your Alabamas, like those type of coaches. I'm not talking the Kurt Cignettis, but that I think is probably the best option for them at this time that they might be able to get. But the big guy that apparently is being introduced is Matt Rule.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know if that's the guy.
I wouldn't. I think, like Bussin' with the Boys, they brought up a good point. Like, Matt Rule also doesn't win the big game, so why would you hire another coach? Like,
right.
He's like won 2 top 25 matchups in recent years, and like his past 27 ranked games. So I don't know. I think you have to target, and there's no guarantee that he would accept this job. But like Alex Golish from USF was at one point an Ohio State grad assistant, so he's familiar with the Big Ten area, that footprint. He's won a big game. He beat Florida in the Swamp. Like, he's proven that he can do good things with the USF team. Kurt Cignetti, obviously, stud coach. The question is, would he actually leave Indiana after he's already had instant success? I mean, he passed Penn State up. Like, Penn State, he literally just passed Penn State in 2 years. And so, like, would he go to Penn State? And it's not a lateral move. I think it'd still be a step up just because of the infrastructure and all the
Right.
facilities are already built for football at Penn State. So it's not like a lateral move per se, but he has proven he can win at Indiana. And the Big Ten is not that. It's not the challenge that the SEC is to win week in and week out. Like you can go, Indiana can go
Right.
11-1, 10-2 every year with a good roster. So I don't know. I think it'd be hard to pull Curt Cignetti. He's only been there 2 years too, so it'd be hard to pull him
Right.
now, especially after. And the thing with the Penn State job that I think is going to be a challenge with some of these coaches is like, what coach wants to step in to a job where the only expectation and the only thing the fans are going to be happy with is better than 10-2, national championship
Right.
or bust. Like, what coach wants to step into that? At least with Mark Richt, when Kirby Smart took over Georgia, they understood that there was going to be like, yeah, the team was somewhat successful. They were like pretty good. There was still going to be some growing pains, that there was going to be a few steps that he had to make where he's going to take a chance.
Right.
He's going to get a 5-star and what's the guy? Jacob Eason, I think.
Jason, it was Eason, and then it was Fromm.
So we got
back
Jacob
to back. And then
Eason.
they also had Justin Fields. But
So we got Jacob Eason, and they weren't
Right.
great right away because and then Jacob Eason ended up transferring, and then Fromm came in and finally kind of like righted the ship. So is Penn State okay
Right.
with taking growing pains? It doesn't seem like it. They just fired a coach that was going 10-2.
No.
So I think what coach actually wants to go into those expectations. I don't see. There's a name. I guess I just did see it technically listed on a hot list, but Drinkwitz from Missouri. He's succeeding at Missouri, and I think he could make the. Like, I have him in my playoff at Missouri currently. So like, does he look at that as a step up? And does he think he can win more games at Penn State than Missouri? I don't know. I mean, it's an easier
Right.
job in the sense that the Big Ten is weaker than the SEC, but it's kind of a coach's preference, and that's what you're going to find with Penn State. Like, who wants to step into those expectations? Right. So.
Yeah, it's like you just fired a coach that was going 10-2 every year. It's like, what coach is, because the thing with Cignetti was there was zero expectations. Yep. Like, and he came up there and he wrote checks. He wrote checks with his mouth, and he cashed it with his play on the field for year one. Won all the games he was supposed to, win 11-1, made the playoff, and then this year he wrote checks again in the off season, and he's cashing them on a much bigger scale with the win last week against Oregon. But my thing with growing pains, like you mentioned, with Smart, was that was a different era of college football. That was back in 2016, 2015, 2016. And now it's because Cignetti, like, part of the reason he had such instant success at Indiana was the transfer portal. So it's not only who are you hiring, but who's that guy you're hiring going to bring in player-wise? Like, who is he bringing in off his team that are instant impact players? Like, because Cignetti, he brought tons of guys from James Madison that either are still on the team or was part of that team last year that helped them springboard into getting the Fernando Mendozas and the players that they have this year that have made them a national championship contender. So that's my thing with the Penn State job is you're going to have to take somewhat of a realistic look at yourself when you're in this hiring process of like, okay, guys, we're finding a guy that went 10-2. So when our next coach, because then you get yourself into you're just paying buyouts, you're just paying money, like, to different coaches. Because let's say you hire a big name coach, well, any of these big name coaches you hire, you're going to have to pay that school money to get them, because you're buying that contract out. You're going to have to pay that school money. And then let's say this guy goes 10-2, 11-2, whatever their schedule is, but whatever their record is, but they don't make the play, or they make the playoff, but they don't make a run, whatever. And then in 3-4 years, you get fed up and you fire him. So that's the situation. I think they're kind of beating themselves into a corner with this. And the other thing that,
or you can add your other, or you can add your other thing, and then I'll add a thing.
My thing is, yeah, my other thing is with the apparel deal because apparently Adidas is the one forking over a lot of this money to pay the buyout. And it's like, okay, if that's the situation, then are these like how much change are you going to see more along the lines of college football when these apparel deals matter so much to NIL dollars? Like, how much are you willing? Like, how many? I guess is this the beginning of a new era of college football where apparel deals maybe they don't decide who you hire, who you fire, but like, are you going to see more buyouts and stuff like that? This become the norm because of apparel deals and all this money. And that's not a question that has to be answered. I guess that's just a broader, food for thought for the listeners.
Yep.
Of like, is this the beginning of a just a new normal of college football?
Yep. The other thing I'll say is that I was going to add is just the hot names in the coaching cycle and the hot names that a lot of other teams are going to look to add have spread offense kind of backgrounds. And so Penn State's known for running the ball, tight end usage, more of a pro style offense. So does Penn State all of a sudden kind of change their historic identity? And do they hire a spread offense coach? Yeah. We've seen that work some places, not work other places.
Right.
They're built to run pro style. Not like a lot of the hot names are not interested. Like a lot of the hot names are offensive guys. So if you want to, I know, that just makes it even more challenging. It's like, okay, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin leaves. Ole Miss needs a new coach. There's a ton of offensive guys that are going to run spread offense that are going to fit right in. Like, I think Pete Golding would get elevated to head coach if Lane left, and that's just what I've been hearing from all like Ole Miss message boards and stuff. But he's going to have a spread offensive guy as the OC. But like, that's just another thing. It's like all these names are kind of spread offense. Let's get some athletic QBs. Which I don't think Penn State fans would be mad about that, but at the same time, you're not going to have Singleton and Katron Allen in your backfield when you're running a spread. Like, those guys want to run downhill, start 7 yards behind the QB, get a head start. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they end up going and if they decide to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and like to that point, like Mississippi State, the first of the two head coaching changes that they've had very, very, very recently was when Zach Arnett came in. They were an air raid offense under Mike Leach, obviously, and he brought in a guy. Forget his name because he's not even. I don't know where he even is now. But he was the OC at App State. Well, they ran a lot of inside zone, and then you had Woody Marks in the backfield, who was the school's all-time leading receptions leader as a running back because he's used to like not being ran 20, 25 times a game, and he was ran 20, 25 times a game, and he got hurt like halfway through the season because his body wasn't used to that much running from his first 3 years on campus. But definitely that's a really good point. It's like you're gonna have to change your entire. You're gonna have to change your identity, so it's like you're gonna have growing pains, obviously, when that does happen. But so that's our take on the James Franklin firing, big news. So that springboards into, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but the big games obviously last week. Missouri lost a heartbreak at Alabama. We both are on Missouri. I still think they're still in the driver's seat as far as for their own destiny for the playoff. It does get a little dicey because you can afford maybe one more loss.
Yeah.
Especially with the way the SEC is going to look near down the stretch with all these big teams playing each other. But you also have the other big game was obviously Oregon and Indiana, or Indiana finally getting over the hump and winning that big road game in Austin Stadium. 30-20 was the final. And I guess, and Ben, I don't know how much you watched this game. I caught most of the second half, but what was your biggest takeaway from, both teams' perspectives?
For Indiana, I think, wow, congratulations. It's a huge win. I think we kind of, when we were previewing the game, it's like, is Indiana for real? Even if they hang in, I think it proves they're for real. Well, they went and won by 10.
Right.
So they're for real,
Yeah.
real. Oregon's still a really talented football team. They're a little bit young. I mean, Indiana has an advantage there, so that showed a little bit. But both teams are still very good. Probably both make the playoff. But Indiana, I mean,
Yeah, for sure.
Indiana just, it looks like a really, really good football team.
Yeah.
Bama is on a
Yeah.
roll. You briefly touched on that game. Bama is looking very dangerous. I don't like that because I'm not a huge Bama fan, but they're playing really good football. Missouri looked like a contender as well. So we'll see how the rest of Missouri's season turns out. Ahmad Hardy has to do more running the ball. But
only getting him when I looked at that game, because it was on, the entire game was on when I was working. So I just looked at the stat lines and I watched some highlights, but the highlights weren't really showing much because it was quick, 3-4 play snippets. But when I looked at the stat line and I saw Ahmad Hardy only had 12 touches, or 12 carries, I was like, did he get hurt? And then come to find out that he didn't get hurt. That was just their game plan. I'm like, you have now. And it wasn't like he had 12 for 30 yards. He had 12 for 52. So that's averaging above 4.5 or right around 4.5 yards a carry. And in a game like that, if that's what you're getting from your starting running back, I feel like you keep running the ball. We talked about this with Notre Dame at the beginning of the season with Jeremiah Love. He was getting decent yards per carry, but he wasn't getting the touches, especially in those first two games. The last 3 or 4 they played, he's getting a lot of touches, and what's happening? They're winning they're winning games, they're getting themselves back in the playoff picture. So my biggest takeaway from that game, Missouri-Bama, was if that's Missouri's blueprint the rest of the way, hey, when stuff now granted they were down a couple touchdowns, so I get hey, we got to throw the ball to get back in the game. But if part of and again, I didn't watch the game, so I don't know how it transpired. But if you get down in that crunch time where it's hey, 5 minutes left, we're down 7, you can still run the ball. Or hey, first quarter, we're down 14, you don't have to start airing out. You can still use the running game to help you out. And I feel Ahmad Hardy has to get more touches. And then my point on the Oregon Indiana game was Indiana last year, when Mendoza throws that pick 6, they I don't want to say they crumbled, but they could have easily crumbled. Because last year in their big games there was all blowouts, but that's a game that not only do you throw the pick 6, that's a game time pick 6 late in the fourth quarter. You then follow that up with it was a 5-6 minute drive to take the lead, and then you force Dante Moore to throw back-to-back picks that iced the game pretty much. That was my biggest takeaway from Indiana, was they had adversity on the road late in the fourth quarter, and they responded like a championship contender should. And then the other one, which I think proves Texas might be okay, I don't know, was obviously the Red River rivalry. And I don't know if Texas is, now obviously they're ranked, and if they do win out, they'll probably still make the playoff. My biggest takeaway, though, is Oklahoma, because if Mateer is not healthy, and this is the same Mateer that you're going to see for 2 to 3 weeks, or maybe the rest of the season, however long it takes for that right hand to fully heal, it's going to be a major, major cause for concern. And that's the reason I didn't have them in the playoff I thought they beat Texas, but I didn't know how the rest of their, because they go through a gauntlet the rest of the way. They play Ole Miss, they play Missouri. I forgot the other team that they play off the top of my head. But it's if you're going through that gauntlet and Mateer is at 70, 85% or whatever he was on Saturday, even if he's just last Saturday, even if he's just a couple ticks, healthier, with the way he runs the football, he's not going to be 100% healthy, and it only takes the right hit for that thumb to break again, and then it's probably all she wrote on that season.
Yep. Oklahoma is definitely in a scary position just looking at their schedule, and they're basically they have Mateer that needs to play as Superman for them. So yeah, I don't know what to think about Texas either, to your point.
We'll find out next week when they come to Starkville. Arch Manning has never played a game in the state of Mississippi He plays one next Saturday, boys and girls. Get ready for it.
Nice.
So yeah, that's just the recap of our week 7. It's a quick little recap because, like I mentioned, because some of these games we'll kind of touch on in this in our lineup for the show today. So we do have 5 games. The first one I wanted to talk about was LSU and Vandy. Last I saw, I believe Vandy is it's pretty much a pick 'em. So it's depending on your book, it's 2.5 for Vandy. So Vandy 2.5-point favorite against LSU, and this is a game where both teams are 4-1, 5-1, 5-1, I believe. So it's a loser goes home kind of matchup where both teams have playoff aspirations because of what they either preseason expectations like LSU or what they've done this season with Vandy and how their schedule might play out. So Vandy's in these kind of games probably the rest of the way where if they keep winning, they're going to be in the playoff. But if they lose 1 or 2, they're going to be playing teams that they could ruin their playoff chances. Like they play Texas, they play Tennessee later in the season. And I'll just touch on this. Nussmeier has not looked healthy all year long. He hasn't looked really good all season long. And with that being said, I can't believe these words about to come out of my mouth, and we're not talking about college baseball or basketball. Give me the Commodores to beat the LSU Tigers. I just think I think Diego Pavia, this is the first time you're going to see him on that national stage since the Bama loss, because they really weren't in a big game last week. And I think that they're I think they're a really good team. And I think that they can catch, if they take the Ole Miss blueprint from how Ole Miss won that game against LSU, and the defense can keep them in that game, and Pavia just makes the right plays and doesn't turn the ball over, I think you can see Vandy win this game. So give me the Commodores.
Yeah, I think it is weird to say, but I think Vandy has earned more benefit of the doubt. There's not...
Yeah.
We know a lot more about what Vanderbilt's going to do, and we have a lot of more, we wish LSU would do something. We know Vandy's going to do these certain things well. They're going to run really well. They're going to defend well. They're going to run read option and play action passes very well. There's things that Vandy you can rely on. LSU, you can rely on the defense, and then offensively, you can't rely on the run game, and you can't rely on the deep ball from Nussmeier this year. So you can't rely on the offense at all. So, and another takeaway that for this game coming up is both of these teams are in pressure spots. How does Vanderbilt react in a pressure situation? They now have one loss they had the bye week to prepare for this game. They probably should have beat Bama if they didn't have those turnovers in the red zone. They were playing good enough to win again, which would have been an insane upset, right? But they were actually playing well enough. They just turned it over when they were about to score 2 times. So, and then LSU. If they lose this game, they're not making the playoff. They have Texas A&M right after this, and then they have Bama after that. The odds of them winning both of those games after losing to Vanderbilt basically slim to none. So
yeah, and you're already in a stretch where you already have the one loss to Ole Miss. So 10-2 again. We're 1 year into the 12-team playoff, but 10-2, and I think 10-2 is going to be the cutoff again this year, just because I think there's going to be a lot of good teams in other conferences. We're talking the Big Ten's probably got. At this point, you can probably pin in 3 Big Ten teams with Oregon, Ohio State, and Penn State. Not Penn State. Indiana making the playoff. And
I just saw something too. Illinois will probably finish the season 10-2 because they play an absolute cakewalk of a schedule the rest of the way.
Cakewalk.
And
right.
I do not want Illinois in the playoff. They're not good enough.
Yeah, it's you're gonna have, which honestly though, a 10-2 Illinois against a 9-3 LSU. If LSU, let's say LSU wins this, or let's say LSU loses to Vandy, but they beat either Bama or A&M. A 9-3 LSU is winning that argument over a 10-2 Illinois, because Illinois has beaten nobody. Like they
I
and
hope
like
so.
yeah, but yeah, the 10-2, kind of cutoffs like that makes it to where LSU. Hey, if you want to make sure that you're going to make the playoff and not have to be sitting there on selection Sunday or whatever it is. But yeah, it's Sunday. Selection Sunday, kind of nervous, then you probably got to win 2 of these 3 games. And with them all being, well, I think A&M's in Tiger Stadium, but with 2 of those games being on the road, and this is, I mean, you thought Bama last season was a big game for Vandy, now granted half the stadium was Bama fans, so it's in that stadium small and everything like that. This has to be one of the biggest selling tickets in Nashville for a Vanderbilt game. And I'm actually going to Nashville. I won't be in there. I'll probably get in there after the game's been played because it's 11 a.m. kick. So it'll be exciting to see what the city's like if they do beat LSU. And maybe I'll see the goalpost being torn down again and being thrown into the river. Who knows? But yeah, give me Vandy. And the total is set at 47.5.
Yeah, I'm also taking.
I'd probably take the under.
I would agree with the under, and I would agree with, I'm going to take Vandy as well. I just don't trust LSU. If LSU pulls it out in any sort of dominating fashion, then we have a conversation. But they haven't looked good enough. And Vanderbilt has shown
they haven't
stretches of absolute. They haven't
won
dominance.
Any dominant. Exactly, that's something. They haven't won a game in a dominating fashion against a quality-ish opponent. Yeah. Like the Clemson win, and Clemson obviously is 4-2 and whatever. And like there's a chance that whatever in 3 because they have 3 losses. But I mean, and that win might age better as Clemson has a cakewalk in the ACC, but still, that's not gonna be a top 15 win that you're probably needing to get to the playoff. And next game on our docket is actually Ben is really strong about one side of this. I am kind of somewhat torn just because Duke has lost me a lot of money picking against and both of them. That's the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Catching a 1.5, they're plus 100 on the money line. Over under set 16.5. Visiting the Duke Blue Devils. Ben, again, as I said, you're really, really strong about this. We'll get into why you're so strong about this later. So give me your feelings on this game and just take the floor, my friend.
Yeah. So I want to acknowledge that Duke is playing some really good football right now. They had a really good showing their last game. They just can't. They're coming off a bye. The one thing I'll say about coming off a bye week is you usually start flat. I think Georgia Tech is they're playing well. They've been in a couple close games, but it's about time that they show someone who's boss. And I think Duke is going to suffer those ramifications. I mean, Georgia Tech is just a really good football team. Duke has shown the ability to get blown out by Tulane, for example. And so I think that Georgia Tech finally flexes their muscles after almost losing to Wake Forest and not looking impressive. And I can't remember who they played. I'm blanking on who they played last week, but they still won by like 15. But either way, I think. Do you want me to go ahead and spill the beans on what I'm picking, or?
Let's save it. Let's save it for the. Well, yeah,
I'll just say I'm picking Georgia Tech, obviously, but we can just elaborate further.
Yeah, no, Ben's picking. Yeah, Ben's picking Georgia Tech. We'll elaborate that
for the upset, which is kind of crazy to say for a fifth. What do they rank? 12, 13?
Yeah, they're 12 and they're facing an unranked team, which a lot of people would say this was a rat line. I don't see it as that just because you mentioned the bye week. And that's why I feel strong about 2 things. I feel strong about, Georgia Tech winning, but I also feel stronger about the under. Because the over-under set at 16.5, I think Georgia Tech can put up points, but that defense is sound at times, and Duke's offense, they go through fluxes where they're really good, they go through stretches where they're really bad. And especially like you mentioned, that starting out flat. If this game starts out 14-0, 21-0, and now granted Mensa, that's that transfer quarterback. They paid him all this money. If he's like, it's okay, buddy. Like, it's time to show up now. And this is the game where it's kind of put up or shut up time for him in a big spot against a ranked team. Because like you mentioned, they got blown out by Tulane. They got blown out by Illinois early in the season, and now, and yeah, they blew out Cal a couple weeks ago, but I don't see them. I just don't see. I think Georgia Tech, like, you're an undefeated ACC team and you're 12. Like, that's something you really don't see that often. It's like, okay, like, it's time to, like, hey, look, like, we're gonna flex on muscles. We're gonna get into that top 10.
Actually, when I was writing down notes for this game, I actually added a best bet was the Georgia Tech under for the game. That was the best bet. That I was easy under. I just don't see, because I think this game, I think it could easily we could look up at halftime and it's 24-7 Georgia Tech, and that would put us at 31. And I think Georgia Tech, if you're down 2 to 3 scores with them in the second half, they're just going to run the clock. They're going to run the ball with their running back, Jamal Haynes or something.
King. I forgot his last. Yeah, Jamal Haynes. Sorry, Jamal Haynes, and then because it's Jamal Haynes and Haynes King. But if they're just able to use that clock, then it's pretty much set in stone, brother. You're cooked. Yeah. But well, again, we will stay for the big parlay episode, or the big parlay at the end of the episode for Ben, and then we'll get into that. The next game we're going to talk about is the third Saturday in October, so we're going to talk about Tennessee, Alabama. Tennessee 5-1, ranked number 11. Bama 5-1, ranked 6th, the top ranked 1-loss team. Bama favored by 8.5, over under 58.5. This is a game there's a lot of games, quite a few games, that we're going to talk about where it's kind of, hey, like, this is kind of your last chance, or the start of your last chances if you're going to make the playoffs. Both these teams we mentioned have one loss. Tennessee, they like I said, they still have Vandy on the schedule late in the season. They still have, that might be actually, well, they might play. No, they don't play LSU, but they still have, I think, Oklahoma. They still play Oklahoma at home. But this is their last true tough road test. And again, talk about if you're 9-3, if you're a 10-2, 9-3 SEC team, who'd you beat on the road when you're talking about going on the road in a playoff game, who'd you beat on the road could easily be an indicator of who's in and who's out. And if Tennessee's sitting there at 9-3 with no big road wins, except for their best road win right now is against Mississippi State, and I think Bama's for real. I think Ty Simpson's for real. He's the odds-on favorite right now, I believe, to win the Heisman. I don't think he does that, but give me Bama to cover. Give me Bama to cover at 8.5. I don't, especially with it being a night game in Tuscaloosa. I mean, Aguilar thought Starkville midday was crazy. Get ready for Tuscaloosa, my friend. You saw them make certain mistakes in that game that if they make against a much better team in Alabama, that they made against Mississippi State. And even the game they played last week against Arkansas, where they had that game easy. They were up 17. I was going to win my parlay last week was going to hit. And because now granted it was only the second or third leg that was playing, but all the other legs won, except Tennessee choked away a 17-point lead and only won by 3. So give me Bama. Might be playing, might be picking out of, revenge for Tennessee, but give me the Crimson Tide to cover. And again, not to spill the beans on stuff later, give me the over.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think Bama rolls. There's not really a whole lot. I mean, I do think that Bama's going to dominate the majority of the game, and I think Tennessee somehow backdoor covers. But obviously it's a 8.5 point line. It's fairly big for the matchup that it is. So I can see Tennessee making the score look more respectable than the game actually is. That's kind of how I feel. I don't think Bama's gonna. They may not look dominant the whole game, but at certain points they will definitely have control of the game.
Yeah. I think Ty Simpson's for real. I think the receivers are for real. The the DBs for Tennessee, and again, I'm thinking to the game. I saw them in person, or not in person, but I watched pretty much every snap, and that was the Mississippi State game.
Their
And
best
there's so
DBs
many
hurt too.
chances the Mississippi State.
McCoy for
The
Tennessee.
best DBs hurt. And if Bama just looks at what Mississippi State did running the ball against Tennessee, that's all you got to do, brother.
Bama can't do
because
what
we
y'all
figured
did,
out,
though.
hey, if we just.
I will say.
But Bama can't. Yeah,
Bama can't run as good as y'all
But
did,
I mean, yeah. Well,
in my opinion.
here's to hope that we actually. Well, here's to hope we can run the ball Saturday. Hopefully, Fluff is better. I'll give him my ankle. He can have it. He can have it forever. But yeah, just give it to Tide. I think they continue to roll, which again, it's hard for me to say. But Bama, I think, is less hateable without Saban. But that's another conversation for another day. Fourth game we're going to talk about is number 20 USC against number 13 Notre Dame. Notre Dame, the highest ranked 2-loss team. We talked about the highest ranked 1-loss team in our last game. We talked about the highest ranked 2-loss team. Now, USC is 9.5 point underdogs. The over/under set at 61.5. And my question is, what on God's green earth has earned Notre Dame? I get like they've played tomato cans besides their first two games, but what on God's green earth has given Notre Dame the right to be 9.5 point favorites against a quality team like USC? Now, granted, they haven't played exceptional competition. I mean, they did lose to Illinois, but just I don't see it with Notre Dame. I don't see it with the defense. Now, granted, the defense did do well against a lot well against Arkansas in their last game against a decent offense than they did in their first two games against good offenses with Miami and with the game against A&M. But give me the over, honestly. Give me the over. I think. Well, actually, no. I'm not going to touch the total in this game. Give me USC plus 9.5, and I will sit pretty. I think Mailata. I don't want to say his first name because I know I'll forget which J name it is. But give me Mailata. I think he's better at this point in his career. Obviously, a veteran quarterback than CJ Carr. Give me him to keep USC in this game. And that run defense, though, gave up some big runs to
Michigan.
I'm forgetting the running back's names, but to Michigan
Justice
running
Haynes.
back. Yeah, to Michigan. Well, I was forgetting their running back's name. Is it Haynes? Yeah. So yeah, Justice Haynes. So give me Michigan. Oh my gosh, it's late, y'all. Give me USC to cover this game. I'd probably if I'm touching a total, I'd probably touch the under, just because I think Lincoln Riley has found a blueprint of, run the ball, kind of use the spread offense, but use clock as well. So give me USC plus 9.5. And if you're feeling frisky, everybody, give me USC money line. But yeah, give me USC plus 9.5 for sure.
I would agree. I think I'm taking USC money line. I think Notre Dame's defense is just so susceptible, and I think McKyleman, the best receiver as of today in the whole country, should be on. He could be on majority of NFL rosters right now and be in their receiver rotation. Him and Mayava are gonna just carve Notre Dame up, man. Notre Dame, I really like them. I like their potential. If they give Jeremiah Love the ball like 20 times, I don't think USC can withstand it, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Right.
And if it does happen, great.
Yeah.
Good for Notre Dame. They figured out how to win. If you give the ball to your best player.
And honestly, good for your Heisman pick, because I don't know if we've touched on this. Every year that it has ended in a 5 from the first year the Heisman's given out has gone to a running back dating all the way back to 1935 to 2015 with Derrick Henry. So, and with Ahmad Hardy's play last week and not getting the ball a lot against Bama, this is the last stand for the running backs. So Jeremiah Love would need a big game, obviously, to probably get himself back in that conversation, or truly in that conversation, I should say. So give me USC definitely cover the game at 9.5. Okay, it's the biggest game. It's the game that's going to have Ben clenching his butt cheeks for 2.5 hours, starting to get two. He's probably doing it now already ready for
Very
this game.
stressed.
Number 5, Ole Miss against number 9, Georgia. The Bulldogs of Georgia are favored by 7.5. Though looking at where this spread is now and the odds under it, it looks like the game's about to go down to 6.5 because it gives you plus money at 7.5. Excuse me, at 7.5. The over/under is set at 54.5. Ben, this is your game. This is your team. This is your alma mater. I'll let you have the floor, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Here's what I'll say. Take Ole Miss points in the first quarter because Georgia starts games awfully. So I think Ole Miss starts fast, and I don't think Georgia can recover. I think that's the blueprint that Ole Miss needs to win. I don't think that if Ole Miss plays around with their food like LSU, where you kind of just score a little bit in the first half and then you kind of milk the rest of the game and you score 24 total points. I don't think that's going to work against Georgia. Georgia's a really good offensive second half team. They've come back in multiple games already and they have shown capability to be explosive when they need to come back. But in the beginning of the games, they don't really put too much effort into being explosive. They kind of just feel the game out.
Right.
They're not really that great in the beginning of the game. Ole Miss has to take full advantage of that. They have to attack. I think that they're going to do that. I mean, we talk really, like, when you highlight this game, a lot of people say, oh, they didn't play Washington State very good. Maybe they were looking ahead. Well, Kiffin openly admitted we were looking ahead. In the press conference leading into the bye week, before we even got to the Washington State week, he said, we're using the whole bye week to prep for Georgia. He said that during the game week for Washington State. Okay, but then that's when we're going to pivot to Washington, like focusing for Washington State.
Yeah.
Who's to say that actually happened? I mean, it seems, especially based on how everyone played, that they were still focused on Georgia.
Yeah.
If you have 2 weeks to prep for Georgia, I think one way to look at that is Kiffin could get in his head and try to get too creative, too flashy, too gimmicky, where like we have Kawan Lacey, who's a top 3 to 5 running back in the SEC, handing the ball off some. You don't have to do a trick play every play. We have guys that can win one-on-one on the outside. Georgia's secondary is definitely gettable. You don't have to do a double move every play. You don't have to do put 3 guys in motion and then throw a tight end pass. Like, you don't have to do like crazy things like that. I do think if we utilize the tight end, I think that our offense is really good. Daquan Wright has been awesome this year. Kewan Lacey has been awesome. Deuce Alexander has been awesome. The defense, I am concerned that we will not be able to stop the run. Especially, I do think potentially, now I'm kind of thinking about it, if we score too fast, then our defense would be gassed and Georgia can just kind of keep running the ball on us. However, like we already kind of talked about, Georgia starts off slow. I think if we get a 3-and-out or 2 to start the game, or we hold them to field goals, then it could get out of hand. And the one thing that Ole Miss has experience doing that some of these other teams don't is beating Georgia. We did it last year. And then also we have experience milking the clock and running the timeout. Like we had a huge run against LSU to close out the game. We've done that a couple of times. We ran the ball out the last few minutes against Arkansas. And I'll also just say, and I've said this a few times to other people, this is Chambliss Heisman. This is Trinidad Chambliss' time to cement himself in the Heisman race. If he wins this game, he's going to New York. Like, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. He's going to New York if he wins this game, especially if the offense does well. So.
Yeah, the things I'll say about this is Josh Pate said this. The issue that Georgia's going to run in, the issue I think Georgia could run into this week. I'm taking Ole Miss spread. Um, I might actually parlay that with Ole Miss money line first quarter because they're actually plus money on the first quarter
Nice.
right now, according to DraftKings. The thing with Ole Miss, or the thing with Georgia, is that they've started out so slow. And now you did mention defense, the Ole Miss defense possibly getting gassed. If, but the thing is, in reference to playing the run, the thing is though is that if Ole Miss is up 24-7 at midway through the second quarter or something like that, if they're up 3 scores, Georgia might not think, depending on what the situation is with who gets the ball and all that stuff, Georgia might not think, hey, we can still run the ball, guys. They might be thinking, okay, no, like we need to drop back pass, like we need to Stockton, these receivers, they got to take over and do kind of what they did to help us get back and end up winning the Tennessee game when they were down a couple scores. But I just don't see. I think the thing with Kiffin is that if he's admitting to that, it happened.
Yeah.
Because I was an assistant high school coach for 2 years, and that's something we would do. Like if we had a bye week mixed in with playing like a mediocre competition, like a team kind of like, I don't know if they paid Washington State, but a team that you're kind of paying to play, and then after that is your big game. You're using that I know from experience, you're using that entire bye week and pretty much until Wednesday preparing for that big game you got in 2 weeks, and then that Wednesday, Thursday, you're kind of, you're sprinkling in the team that you're playing and stuff to look out for them, but you're really focusing head and shoulders on the team, on the game that truly, now, not saying Washington State didn't matter, because if you lost that game, it obviously could have sent everything to a tailspin, but this is the game, this is everything Ole Miss has been, obviously you're building to the LSU game, but ever since the LSU game, for the last 3 weeks, you've been building to this, and this is the crescendo of that. This is, like you said, Trinidad Chambliss, if he has the performance, offense does well, they win this game, you can go ahead and put his name tag on a seat in wherever they have the Heisman now. Go ahead and put his name tag right there, Trinidad Chambliss or T. Chambliss, however they do it. He will be in New York. And to be honest, I think it happens. And because I see this game, and this is why I probably would end up taking the under, is I see this game playing out like last year, where Georgia has a chance early to kind of flex their muscles. Ole Miss gets a stop, whether it's a punt, a 4th down stop, or a field goal. And I think from that point, it's a runaway train in terms of Ole Miss just being able to kind of control the game. And I think if that happens, and Ole Miss can keep this, because the thing with Georgia, and I know they were explosive against Tennessee, but they were not that explosive last week against Auburn. Now, granted, Auburn, I think, is a better defense than Tennessee.
Oh, yeah.
But Ole Miss, I think, is better defense than Tennessee, maybe slightly, but definitely much better offense than Auburn. So if that, I think, is the recipe for, because I think Ole Miss is comparative to Alabama, and you saw how that game turned out in Sanford Stadium. And so, yeah, but hey, I will go ahead and say this. If any officials are watching this, this is a timeout. This is clapping. Timeout, 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 clapping, okay? But yeah, definitely give me Ole Miss in the spread. If you're giving me 7.5 with Lane Kiffin, with how he's coached, especially the last 2 seasons, yeah, give me Ole Miss in the spread. Just give me the points.
Yeah.
So yeah, that takes us. So those are the games of our games of the week. And again, if you tell anybody's plays, again, probably tell Ben's. So we've been teasing it the entire episode. Y'all missed the first leg unless you are on the Twitter. Again, at AB Talk Sports on the Twitter. Unless you're on the Twitter, you missed the first leg. But by the time this comes out, all other 15 legs will be attainable. You might have only just cost yourself a couple, maybe 10 grand. Who knows? So Ben, it's your parlay. Again, this is a $2 wager. So he already had one leg hit, and I'll go ahead and say that it was plus 10.5. We were recording this on Wednesday. It was Tuesday night with New Mexico State. And also, everyone, just for word, Ben thought he had lost it because he thought he took New Mexico State money line, but he had taken them spread, so he had actually won it, which is honestly the best thing in sports. Best thing in sports betting is when you think you lost a bet and you actually won it. So Ben, you don't have to go through every detail, and maybe just a quick little snippet of each. Give them the remaining 15 legs on this masterpiece.
Sure. So, well, I'll just say that New Mexico State covering, I guess 12 or 10.5, whatever it was.
It was 10.5.
Ended up being 10.5. Was my best bet. That was the Tuesday night game. That was a really easy game to pick. New Mexico State's a solid team. Okay. Now for the games that y'all can actually add to your parlay. Miami covering minus 13. Miami's just that good of a football team. San Jose State covering plus 3. San Jose State's a really good football team. Cal minus 13. That's a best bet. So even if you don't want to put it in a parlay, I would take Cal covering minus 13 as a best bet for yourself.
Hey, Ben.
Yep.
That's down to 10.5.
Yep. Cal's down to minus 10. Miami's at minus 13.5 now. But you get the gist.
How did that drop?
People putting money on North Carolina? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Are we stupid? Are we that stupid? All right.
You can't put money on Bill Belichick with no Tom Brady, guys. Tom Brady's not walking through that door.
Yeah, I don't understand that one.
Continue. Sorry.
Okay. USF. I think USF had a huge emotional game against North Texas. They played lights out. They played the best offensive game they probably played all season. I think that comes crashing down a little bit. So I think it's a letdown spot, and I think they're going to go under 70.5. That 70.5 line was so big. And I think it's still really high right now.
It's at 73 right now, which is insanity.
Yep. So I'd definitely take the under on that. That'd be a good best bet. If you want to take a smaller parlay, Old Dominion money line. They're a good football team. They've been competitive in basically every game they played. Georgia Tech, I have not money line because it would be an upset. I have altered the spread Georgia Tech to cover 2.5. I think Georgia Tech can win by 3 pretty easily. I think they can roll over Duke. Michigan State covering plus 23. That's actually now at 27. So could have held off on that one, but
a lot of these moved. Well, no, you got that at 27.5. I was saying a lot of these moved in your favor.
Awesome. So Michigan State against Indiana. Indiana, they just had a huge emotional game against Oregon. Another kind of letdown spot where they may not be as concerned with blowing out the team they play this coming week. Michigan State's not a terrible team. They've shown some competitive spirit. Syracuse covering 10. Pitt had a huge win last week. I think this is a letdown spot for Pitt. Syracuse, they somewhat have figured it out with their backup quarterback, so I think they can cover 10. Purdue covering plus 3. That line moved like immediately. It was plus 5 when I initially had put it, and I still think they cover 3. New Mexico money line. New Mexico has been my darling of this season. They're a very good football team. They have a really good coach, and I think they are going to win that game. Missouri money line going against Auburn. Bye-bye, Mr. Hugh Freeze. Bye-bye. He's probably going to get let go after this loss. Ole Miss money line. Utah money line over BYU. That's another big game. We didn't really touch on that, but
right, yeah, big game in the Big 12, especially because Texas Tech has kind of not ran away with it, but they're sitting there as the only undefeated team, not only in the conference but overall. And every other team is either catching losses or actually BYU I think is undefeated still. But every other team is they're cannibalizing each other below them. So this is a huge game, probably to see who gets the Big 12 championship game to face off against Texas Tech.
It's a huge game. Utah, I would love to see what Kyle Whittingham's going to put in front of this freshman quarterback for BYU. And I think that Utah wins the game money line. Texas Tech money line. They're a great team. Not much to say about them. Their starter might play. I think he's listed as questionable, but their backup's a stud as well, so it doesn't really matter. And then
Yeah.
Bama and Tennessee, I have the over 16.5 points. Yeah. I think Bama is and has been electric on offense. Tennessee's defense, super gettable. And Tennessee's offense has been pretty dang good too. So I could see it going under, but I have obviously it going over, and that is the last leg of the parlay. $2 pays $44,000.
44, baby. So yeah, and I'll be when the funds hit, I will be putting my own money on that as well, just to have a little squad ride, guys. Let's have these squad rides and let's win something big. My parlay, I just have a 5-teamer. Again, if you were listening and you paid attention last week, Tennessee did not cover the 9.5. It's the only leg that missed. So my 5-leg parlay, I have some alts in it as well, just move the lines down. For some, kept the lines down, but I do have Georgia Tech money line. I just don't see. I think they, again, like I said earlier, I think they flex their muscles against Duke. I have New Mexico not winning. I have them covering 8.5. Move that line down a little bit. I just think that they're one of the best teams in the Mountain West, and I think they continue to show that as this Saturday night. I have Washington State against Virginia. I have Virginia minus 14.5. I just think Washington State. You're already having traveled cross country to the South to face Ole Miss, and it's an emotional game. You almost shock the world,
yeah.
And then you lose, and now you got to go fly all the way 3 time zones to play Virginia. Now, granted, that's a night game, so like the body clock's not really working against you, but the air travel's got to be getting to those guys. So give me Virginia minus 14.5, and give me Cal minus 7.5. I just don't see. I mean, I honestly might alt it up. Like I might end up changing the alt spread to above 10.5, and maybe towards that 13.5 that it kind of started at. But I just don't see how North Carolina stays in this game. I mean, obviously Duke did not just stay in the game, and that was kind of a big game when they played Cal. They beat the brakes off of Cal, but North Carolina is an absolute dumpster fire. Bill Belichick is coaching a dumpster fire. It's honestly hysterical to watch. Those odds are plus 1744, so $10 would pay out 184.
Nice.
And those again will take us to our locks of the week. Again, I am 0-6, 0-7, however you want to say it. My locks are one of the picks in Ben's parlay. So my locks are Missouri minus 7.5, Missouri money line, and then Texas A&M minus 7.5 against. Double check who they play before I believe it's Arkansas. Yeah, Arkansas. I am a little worrisome just because Bob Petrino had his voice playing right. I kind of think you only get that interim coach bump once.
Yep.
In terms of in a game like this. Now, I get it is the home game. It's the first home game with him back as the head coach. But A&M, I think, is really, really good. As I mentioned last week, I have them winning the SEC. At this point, I have them winning the SEC. Yep. And I'd be a fool to go against it after they showed their muscles and flexed them against Florida last week. So give me A&M minus 7.5 in Missouri money line as my locks of the week.
Yeah, you know what's crazy is I almost put Penn State in this because I was like, oh, interim coach bump, and then I was like, oh, but they also don't have their starting quarterback, and they have so much going negative against them. I was like, I'm not gonna bet anything related to them. I'm just gonna lay low with them.
Yeah, and speaking of interim coach bump, Corey has another interim coach game. He has UAB, the Memphis. Of course, he's not picking against his Tigers, but he is taking the under, which I could see. I think Memphis. This is a game where Memphis probably. I think Memphis and especially now, this is a classic look ahead spot for Memphis because next week is the big showdown with South Florida, where home field advantage in that conference title game could be on the line, and there's possibility college game days on the line, especially depending on what happens early in the day in the SEC with LSU. College game day could be coming back to Memphis, where they were in 2019, which again was the last time Memphis actually won the American. And he also, took one of my picks in my parlay and one of Ben's picks in his parlay. Well, again, Ben altered that. He also has Georgia Tech money line.
And then my 2 picks of the week are Cal -10 and Miami -13.5.
And that 6-leg parlay, everybody would pay out, a $10 bet would pay out just under $475 with a plus 46.42 on the odds. Again, guys, I'm not just going 1-1 this week. I'm not just getting my first lock. I'm getting both my locks. We're hitting this pick 'em parlay. Book it for yourself. Let's win some cash.
He put his mortgage on Oklahoma last week. Now he's going to put his second mortgage on this parlay.
Yeah. I took out one mortgage, put it on Oklahoma. I took out another mortgage, somehow got the bank to agree to that, putting it on North Carolina, on our parlay. So if next week's episode, I'm filming it from a motel, y'all know why.
But bet responsibly.
Yes, of course. All right, well, that's the end of the show, everybody. Again, thank you for joining us again. And we hope you take these bets. And if you do, let us know. And if you have other bets that you take and you think we're completely wrong on, please let us know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube, like the Twitter at AB Talk Sports. Follow all of our plays. We're actually starting this week trying to get more engagement with you guys. So we're actually going to be putting out plays every night. Not just with our college football plays, but also some NFL plays, especially on Thursday. And as well, I'm actually going to the Patriots-Titans game, so we'll be on the lookout for a same game parlay for that game.
Nice. All right, thanks for listening.
Well, till next time, everybody.
Sir.
Yes.